Hiya 5, hiya 6, me Mr. A back with story time and chapter 7 of Oversea Under Stone by Susan Cooper. Let's see what happens in chapter 7. Well, I think it's underneath the grey house. Yes, look how the burglars tried to take up the floor. But they were looking for the map, not the grail. No, they weren't. Remember what Great Uncle Merry said? They didn't know what they were looking for, nor did he. It might have been a clue to it, like the map, or it might have been the thing itself. Well, the clue was there. Why shouldn't the thing itself be there as well? But look, idiot, Simon said, unrolling the map. The grey house isn't marked. There isn't even a blodge. It wasn't even there then. Remember our Cornishmen lived 900 years ago? Oh. They were sitting on the grass halfway up Kamari Head, at the side of one of the rough-trodden tracks which ran zigzagged up to its slope. Great Uncle Merry had left them on their own. A day's grace to find the first clue, he had said, while I draw off the hounds. Just one piece of advice. Don't start till the afternoon. Spend the morning on the beach or something, then you'll be sure the hounds are gone. Then he had gone out fishing for the day with Father, who was intent on trying a part of the sea off the headland a mile down the coast. And sure enough, as their small boat putted out of the harbour with Father at the tiller and Great Uncle Merry towering stiff back in the bows, the yacht, Lady Mary, gleaming white in the sun, had within minutes moved silently out after them, her engine purring faintly over the quiet morning sea. Watching from the house, they had seen her sails gradually unfurl and billow as she came into the bay. She took a wide course out to sea, but one from which Great Uncle Merry and Father would always be just in sight. Up on the headland now, the afternoon sun prickled their bare legs, and there was a small breeze. "Oh dear," Jane said despondently, edging a blade of grass from its sheath and nibbling it. "This is hopeless. We just don't know where to start. Perhaps we should go back to where we were yesterday." "But we know what things look like from there." "Well, so what? Which things?" "Well, the headland and the sea and the sun, and these stones up on the top there." Barney gestured vaguely above their heads up the slope. "I think they've got something to do with it. The Cornishmen must have been able to see them. Gummery says they're 3,000 years old, so they have almost certainly been as ancient looking 900 years ago as they are now." "You can certainly see them clear enough from the other side." Simon sat up, interested. "But they're such a long way across," Jane pointed out. "I mean, the first clue might be that you have to take 10 paces to your left or something. It always is in stories about buried treasures. But to get to the standing stones up here from over there, you'd have to take thousands of paces right across the harbour. Doesn't make sense." "It doesn't have to be like that," Simon said. "It could be the thing like compass bearings again, you know. Perhaps we have to get something in line with something else to lead us on to a third thing." Barney closed his eyes and screwed up his face, trying to bring back a picture of the scene they had gazed at so hard the evening before. "Do you remember when the sun was setting yesterday?" he said slowly. "The biggest standing stone was right bang in line with the sun, from where we were. I remember because you could only see it if you didn't look straight at it, if you see what I mean." Simon looked closely at the manuscript again, excitement beginning to dawn on his face. "Do you know, I think you've got something there. This round thing drawn here over the standing stones, that we thought was just decoration. Perhaps it's supposed to be the sun." Lost my place. If he knew the map wouldn't be found for years and years and years, he'd have to use signs like the sun that wouldn't be likely to change. "Well, come on, then let's go further up and look." Jane jumped eagerly to her feet, and then suddenly she froze, stock still. "Simon, quick!" she said quietly in a strange, tight voice. "Put the map away, hide it." Simon frowned. "What on earth?" Find out what on earth. "Quickly, it's Miss Withers. She's coming up the path, and someone else with her. They'll be right on top of us in a minute." Simon hastily rolled up the manuscript and stuffed it into his rucksack. "Who is it with her?" he hissed. I can't see." "Yes, I can." Jane turned away quickly as if it hurt her to look, and she sat down again. She was very flushed. It's that boy, the one who knocked me over. I knew he was mixed up in all this somehow." They heard voices then, coming nearer up the slope. Miss Withers' clear tones floated up to them. "I don't care, Bill. We have to check on everything. He may already have—" Then she was on them, silhouetted against the skyline, and she stopped short as she saw the 3 children all sitting, looking expressionlessly up at her. The boy stopped too, glowering. For a moment, Miss Withers stood with her mouth slightly open, taken aback. Then she pulled herself together and flashed a smile at them. "Well," she said pleasantly, coming forward, what a nice surprise. All the Drew family at once. I hope you boys didn't feel too tired after all that sea air we gave you the other day." "Not a bit, thank you," Barney said in his clearest, most public voice. "It's a marvellous boat," said Simon, equally distant and polite. "And what are you all doing up here?" Miss Withers inquired innocently. She was wearing slacks with a sleeveless white blouse that made her arms look very brown, and her dark hair was tumbled by the breeze. She looked very attractive and healthy. She glanced at Jane expectantly. Jane gulped. "We were just looking out at the sea. We saw your boat go out this morning." "We thought you'd be on board her," Simon asked, without thinking. A flicker of wariness crossed Polly Withers' face. She said easily, "I'm not the best of sailors, as I probably told you." Simon looked deliberately down at the sea. It lay as flat and unrippled as a pond. Miss Withers said, following his gaze, "It'll blow up later, you mark my words." "Oh?" Simon said. His face was expressionless still, but there was the faintest note of insolent disbelief in his tone. For the first time, Miss Withers' smile faded slightly. Before she could say anything, the boy with her spoke. "Miss Polly be always right about the sea," he said gruffly, glaring at Simon. "She do know more about it than you old men put together." He jerked his head contemptuously down at the harbour. "Oh, I haven't introduced you," Miss Withers said brightly. "Do forgive me, Jane, Simon, Barnabas. This is Bill, our right-hand man. Without him, the Lady Mary couldn't do a thing." The boy flushed darkly and looked down at his grubby sneakers after a quick glance up at her. Jane thought pityingly, "He thinks she's wonderful." "We've met before," Simon said shortly. Barney said, "How is your bicycle?" "No better for you asking," the boy snapped. "What's your manners, Bill?" Through the sweet smile, Miss Withers' voice was cold and tight as a steel wire. "That's not the way to speak to our friends." Bill looked at her in sullen reproach, jerked forward and went up on the path without a word. "Oh dear," Miss Withers sighed. "Now I've hurt his feelings. These village people are so touchy." She made a charming, conspiratorial little grimace at them. "I suppose I'd better go after him." She turned to follow the boy and then swung around again. The words shot out like a flick of lightning. "Have you found a map?" For a moment of roaring silence that seemed like an hour, they stared at her, and then Barney, driven by pure naked alarm, took refuge in gabbling nonsense. Did you say a map, Miss Withers, or was it a gap? We did find a gap in the hedge down here, although we got through it onto the headland, but we haven't got a map. At least I haven't. I don't know about Simon and Jane. Do you know about any way up the hill? Do you know about a map?" "No." Miss Withers, staring fixedly at them, relaxed into friendliness again. "Yes, that's right, Barnabas. A map. I don't know my way about it all, as a matter of fact, and I couldn't find a map anywhere in the shops this morning. There's one little footpath I'm looking for, just over the other side, and Bill isn't very much help." "I believe Great-Uncle Merry has a map," Jane said vaguely. She was watching closely from the corner of her eye, but not a muscle moved in Miss Withers' face. "You haven't met our great-uncle, have you, Miss Withers? He's gone out fishing with Father today. What a pity. I'm awfully sorry we couldn't help." "I do hope you'll find your way," Simon said kindly. Well, I expect I shall," Miss Withers said. She flashed her brightest smile at them and turned away up the path, raising her hand. "Goodbye, all of you." They watched in silence until she disappeared over the line where the slope met the sky. Then Barney flung himself face down on the ground and rolled over and over, letting out a long, relieved breath. How awful! When she suddenly said... He buried his face in the grass. "Do you think she realises?" Jane said anxiously to Simon. "Did we give it away?" "I don't know." Simon gazed thoughtfully up the quiet green slope. There was no sign there now of Miss Withers, or of anything except one far-away grazing sheep. "I don't think so. I mean, we must have all looked pretty silly when she asked about the map. I know you did." "So did you, like a fish." "All right, well, we could perfectly well have looked surprised anyway, her saying it out of the blue like that. I don't think she'd be able to tell if we were looking guilty or just startled, I expect," he added, gaining confidence as he went on. "She believes we really did think she just wanted an ordinary map to find her way. Perhaps that's all she did want." "No fear," Barney said, emerging from the grass. "She was testing us out all right. Otherwise, why did she say found? Have you found a map? Any normal person would just have to say, have you got a map?" He's quite right. Simon stood up, rubbing the dust from his legs. Great Uncle Merry was right too. They aren't taking chances. Miss Withers was surprised to see us, you could tell, but it wasn't 5 seconds before she was having a go about the map. It was nasty altogether, Jane said, wriggling her shoulders as if she would shake off the memory. She looked up the slope. How can we go on up there now? We shan't be able to tell if she and that horrible boy are hidden away somewhere, watching everything we do. Well, it's no good letting that stop us. Simon stuck out his chin. If we think about being watched, we shall never do anything. So long as we behave normally, as if we were just wandering about, it ought to be all right. He picked up his rucksack. Come on. The side of Kamare Head was steeper than the opposite headland had been, and for a long time, as they toiled up the zigzag path, they saw nothing above them but the line of the slope against the sky, with the sun blazing down into their eyes. The end of the headland, rocky and grey, stretched out far beyond them into the sea, and sweeping towards it the land looked immensely solid, as if it were all rock and the soil above it no more than a skin. And there they were at the top of the slope, where the grass grew short in a great dry green sweep, and they could see the standing stones. As they drew nearer, the stones seemed to grow, pointing silently to the sky like vast tombstones set on end. Stones, Simon said, is the biggest understatement I've ever heard. It's like calling Nelson's column a stick. He stood considering the granite pillars rising above them. There were 4 of them, one much higher than the rest, with the other 3 grouped irregularly round it. Perhaps the Grail's buried under one of those, Barney said tentatively. It can't be, they're too old. Anyway, I think you're wrong about it being buried. Oh, come on, it must be, Jane said. How else could something stay hidden all that time? All right. And remember that bit in the manuscript, said Barney. Over sea and under stone. Simon rubbed his ear, still dissatisfied. We aren't over the sea here. The sea's miles away. Well, all right, not miles, but I bet it's 400 yards to the end of the headland. Well, we're still above the sea, aren't we? I'm sure that's not what he meant. Oversea, undersea, oversea. I wonder anyway. We're trying to go too fast. Step by step, Gomery said. We ought to stick to the step we're on. Simon looked at the sun, gradually sinking over the coast where cliff after cliff curled into the mist beyond Kamare Head. Have a look at the stones. The sun will be low as it was yesterday soon. They look different when you're so close. Jane wandered around the weather-beaten grey pillars of rock. We want to know which one it is that was in line with the sea from the other side. How did we find that out from here? It was the biggest one, Barney said. It stood up higher than the rest. All right, so that's where we're going to leave it for today. And I'll be back again tomorrow with the rest of Chapter 7. Have a good day, everybody. Take care. See you soon.